What you call that noise?
The XTC Podcast.
What do you call that noise?
Welcome back to What Do You Call That Noise, the XTC podcast, where our obsession for all things XTC knows no bounds. My name is Mark Fisher, and in this month's episode, we're going to be considering the fine art of collecting. We're looking at the most prized possessions in the XTC catalogue and talking to some of the people who are proud to call them their own. We'll also be asking whether there is something special about XTC that makes them so collectible. I'll introduce my guests in just a second, but not before I extend my thanks to all the groovy supporters on Patreon who keep the podcast going. They include Pink Things, Humble Daisies, and Knights in Shining Karma, who I'll name check at the end of this episode. One of the benefits of being in the Humble Daisies and the Knights in Shining Karma is you get to hear the podcast a week in advance. And if that sounds enticing, you'll be very well advised to go to patreon.com/Mark Fisher to sign up. Oh, and just a reminder that you can get, actually talking about collecting, you can get my 2 XTC books at xtclimelight.com, but you'll have to move quickly because the XTC Bumper Book of Fun is nearly a collector's item already. It's just about sold out. Now it's time for our monthly steer on what drinks we should be savouring when we listen to our favourite XTC songs. The drinks cabinet is bulging with suggestions from previous episodes, which include vodka and orange paired with the wheel and the maypole, chilled chocolate whiskey to go with complicated game, and English breakfast tea to accompany the affiliated. So let's see what Chez Preston would like to add.
What do you call that noise?
Hello, my name is Cheryl, or Chez to some, and this shy person recommends pairing a good dry gin with the exciting sounds of Extravagant. The smooth and slight zing on the tongue will bring out the someone else in you after a couple of sips and leave you feeling new and not so blue.
New and not so blue. Brilliant. I like the sound of that. Thanks very much for that, Chez. Now, to our guests, who are an attractively international bunch. Let's start by going all the way to Texas and give a big hello to Leslie Gooch. How are you doing, Leslie?
Very well, thanks.
Great. It's good to have you on the episode, not least because Leslie's a long-time supporter of the podcast and has been on the cusp of being a guest for several months. So it's particularly good to get her on today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Next, we'll go to Bristol in the UK, where we find Darryl Bullock. Hello, Darryl.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Good. And as well as being an original Limelight reader, if I remember correctly, Darryl was one of the organisers of the recent XTC convention, and I very much enjoyed his interviews with Terry Chambers and Neville Farmer. Darryl is the host of the World's Worst Records podcast and the author of several books, including David Bowie Made Me Gay, which comes with a recommendation from Andy Partridge, no less. And then we head to Hammarstrand in Sweden, where we're joined by Per Aronsson. Hello, Per.
Hello there. Good to be here.
I'm going to be calling Per a collector's collector because it was Darryl who recommended him as the ideal guest for this episode. And if Darryl thinks Per is an impressive collector, we can safely assume that's exactly what he is. Great to have you here, Per.
I'm flattered.
It's actually Marek Kraus that we have to thank for suggesting this episode. Marek grew up behind the Iron Curtain in the 1980s and had to go to extra efforts to get hold of any records at all. He lives in what is now the Czech Republic, and he got his first XTC record from his mother, who'd been on holiday in the former Yugoslavia, and that was Go To, and he's been a fan ever since. And I think that sort of dedication to get records across the Iron Curtain puts anything, I think, that the rest of us have collected over the years to shame, I think. But that sort of idea, the idea that you might be obsessed enough with the band to cross borders, to go to great lengths, I think says something about XTC fans and the degree to which people get very obsessed with them. And I know, Leslie, you've observed that, not necessarily just for collectors, but just people's enthusiasm for XTC does certainly reach sort of epic fan scales quite quickly in a way that is maybe not true for all groups. I don't know. Where do you think that obsession comes from?
Well, I have given this a lot of thought, and I don't know, but I know that probably most hardcore fans of any band think that this is how people generally feel about their band. But I just started to notice that it seemed like either people had never heard of XTC or they were very strong fans of XTC. I found on Twitter when the discussion would come up, I found I kept writing the phrase, there is no sort of lukewarm fan of XTC or casual fan of XTC. You're either don't really know them or you love them a lot. And I think that's really interesting. And I've thought a lot about why that might be. And I think, there's several things like XTC there's so much going on with their music that people can get them on so many different levels. So a lot of people will say that XTC are a musician's band, like people who are real musicians understand and appreciate the complexity of what's going on. And that's not me. I'm not a musician in any way. I just know, that I'm drawn to it and the things that I love. I love how you're thinking the music is going to go here and it goes here, some completely different place. I don't know that you have to be, a hand gymnast to make that chord. I just love how it sounds. And I think mostly that's, for me at least, it's about kind of the surprises and where the music goes. Lyrically and melodically.
Yeah, it's making me think back to when I first heard the band, and I came in with drums and wires in Christmas 1979 was when I got it. But almost immediately, within a matter of weeks, couple of weeks, I'd already bought White Music and Go To and some of the singles. So I started becoming a collector almost instantly. And there are other people that I like. I would say I was a fan of, but for example, Elvis Costello, I have pretty certainly the majority of Elvis Costello's albums, one way or another, in one form or another. But I don't think I've got a single by Elvis Costello. It hasn't occurred to me that I should get the entire output in quite that same sort of way.
It's interesting you say that. I got pretty obsessed with Elvis Costello when I was a teenager, and I know. Most pretty well a lot of his albums and have heard probably most, if not all. And musically in my household, my husband usually is doing the music purchasing and he's selecting what gets played for us both to listen to. And then I may take some CDs and put them in my car for a while because I want to listen to them. But I don't generally buy on my own until after This Is Pop documentary came out, and I got freshly obsessed with XTC, and then started buying my own copy of everything. So, all their studio albums, and then we'll be talking more about what we have. People may say, what is Leslie been doing on this episode with these professional collectors? Because I'm definitely a novice. But I would say I'm not a collecting type of person, but I have started collecting XTC, and I even have some things that are semi-rare. They're not sought after by lots of people, but things that I just thought were really cool, and so I sought them out.
Yeah. And Darryl, I wonder whether your experience of having worked in a record shop where you if anywhere you're going to see obsessive fans of all sorts of colors and shapes, that you would come across them in a record shop. Did your own collecting start, or does it actually extend to other bands as well as to XTC?
Yeah, I mean, I've always collected. I mean, ever since I was a kid, everything from stamps and coins through to records and was cassettes at that point, and ephemera. I love ephemera, paper goods, things like that. Anything to do with the band that I'm into. So I was obsessed with the Beatles, for example, and their solo careers at that point. So anything and everything I could get hold of. I started collecting shop display material So posters and the kind of standees. Like there's the King for the Day one behind me, and I've got a few of those. We'll probably talk about them later. I think with XTC, one of the things about collecting them is because there's a finite amount of material. You can, I guess, you can hope to achieve a complete and perfect collection. With a band like the Beatles, it never stops. You cannot collect the Beatles. It's just impossible. You will spend every single penny in your pocket and you will still never complete your collection. I mean, there's like 2 7-inches I need, and I've got everything as far as I'm concerned. So it's achievable. It's an achievable goal. So I don't know if that actually answers your question or not, but to chime with my own minor anecdote, it was certainly possible in 1979 to get the entire XTC catalogue. I had to catch up some. I got Go Plus in a second-hand shop somewhere, but it didn't take long to get the whole collection because I was starting so early. But there are other bands whose output now is so great that if you were beginning to get into them now, it would be a lifetime. If I suddenly got into Bruce Springsteen or something like that, or the Rolling Stones, where would I even begin? It would be a hopeless task. But at least I came in at the right stage where it was possible, and I suspect you did as well. I think for a lot of us, collecting extends past just the records. It's not just about having the 7-inches and the LPs or having every track. There's also the guest appearances and all those kind of things as well. It does become an obsession. You're searching out. I've just recently bought the Pugwash album reissue, and it's because it's got Andy and Dave on it. That's the only reason it exists in my collection, because they're on it. I'm not really interested in the rest of it, to be honest. I'm genuinely not. It doesn't matter to me. It's the fact that it's XTC related is enough reason for it to be in the collection.
But how did you start collecting XTC?
Very easy. I wanted all the tracks. So I started to buy singles and wanted to hear the B-sides. And then I discovered that, there is a lot of different sleeves and so on. That's how I started. And I also agree with Leslie about the passion for XTC is because XTC are different. It's not your average band. You have fantastic lyrics and always surprising melodies. And the first album I bought was Black Sea. But the first thing I bought was Generals and Majors. And on Generals and Majors, the double single, there is this track, The Somnambulist. I remember hearing it and thinking, the person that have made this is not your average person. And I played it all the time, and I still listen to it. It's an amazing track. That's how I started.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that sense, particularly those early singles where if you were collecting them as they were coming out, you would be able to hear tracks that you just wouldn't be able to hear otherwise. But if you buy, the Stephen Wilson remixes, for example, you can get all of these extra things that you back then you couldn't get.
Well, I did some counting. I have 199 7-inch singles, all XTC or Dukes of Stratosphere.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, most of them making plans for Nigel. It's so easy to keep on getting them, isn't it?
And I have all the science fiction except the one that everybody wants. So I have science fiction from Germany, from New Zealand, from Australia, from UK, but not the UK with the picture sleeve. I still think it sells for around £2,000-3,000, something like that, if you have a chance to buy it.
Yeah, so that is the holy grail. Do we agree that science fiction with a cover is the one that we'd most like?
Yeah, the 3D cover. Yes, that is the holy grail.
I mean, Per's right. It is the holy grail. It's not the rarest. I mean, I would suggest that Wrapped in Grey 7-inch in a picture sleeve is rarer.
Yeah,
but it's
more
but
rare.
It's not the one that collectors want, and that's because you have the dual collecting angle here. Not only is it XTC's, rare, one of XTC's rarest releases, but it's also a very rare punk collectible. And there are lots of people who collect punk records and new wave records, not necessarily collecting it because it's by XTC. It's kind of like when you say there's 2 different markets for an antique chair. People who collect chairs and people who collect that kind of period of antiques. Same sort of thing happens with a lot of records, is that you might have more than one collecting market after it.
So I've got here this is a 7-inch of science fiction, but it doesn't have a cover. And I don't know whether it's ex jukebox or where it's come from, but it exists and it's in my hand right now. So is that of value at all?
Yeah, it's valuable. But which one do we have? Is the UK version?
So that looks like a straightforward first edition British 7-inch.
Yeah, but without a sleeve.
And here is the German one.
I've got that one as well. Yes,
I had two. Gave away one of them.
I'm wondering do you have so many of science fiction because you love that song so much, or just because there's so many versions of it and you just wanted to collect them all?
I wanted them all. That was it. So I even have two of that one. But here is an odd thing I have. This is Looking for Footprints in hard vinyl.
Oh,
I've got one of those.
So for those who don't know, Looking for Footprints came out as a flexi disc with Flexi Pop magazine or something like that. I can't remember what publication.
Yeah.
But so you've got it on the hard vinyl.
Yeah, and I think it was made. 20 copies was made of this one. So, but you see, there's nothing. Just white like this. But it is Looking for Footprints.
How interesting.
Yeah, I have a copy as well.
And Darryl, you have that one too?
I have one as well, exactly the same. I thought most of the Flexi Pop singles were pressed on 50 copies of vinyl, but there might be less. It could easily be less.
Yeah.
But I've got one as well, yeah. And I think there's a 10-inch acetate of it as well around, but I've not seen one of those.
So technically, an item like that should be even rarer than the science fiction we're talking about, but maybe fewer people know about it.
That's probably true.
It's certainly rarer, but less people are interested in it.
But it's not as interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to be a real fan to even know that it exists.
I took a chat with Andy about collecting and asked him what he thought. Do you want me to read what he said?
I would love to, yeah.
Yes.
He says like this: collecting is a noble art. I am a man who collected American comics in his teens and early 20s, transferring my affections to toy soldiers and old toys from then on. I've occasionally tried to rationalize collecting, but no examination needed. I just enjoy it. Finding things I never knew existed, getting all the variants of any given object. It simply gives me great joy. And life is all about following your joy. I think that is quite a good description, because I said to him, in many ways, it's quite pointless with all this stuff you have. But I see it as it goes all the way back to the cave when we collected things. And it's still in our genes to do that.
Yes, like building up food for the winter. It's that urge to keep us through the dark months ahead. But I
keep the warmth.
But have either of you, Darryl or Per, gone through moments that I went through, which is thinking, I was a keen collector until a certain point, and then I thought, why am I doing this? I never look at these things. I don't get any pleasure from them particularly. I sort of just the sort of comfort of knowing it's there. And I did actually stop, and it's maybe in latter years I've become a bit more interested again. But have you ever had those moments of existential questioning?
Yes, many times. I have so much now, and I very seldom find anything that I want, because I have so much, and I'm not that interested anymore. And I look at all my things and think, what shall I do with this?
Yeah.
Give it to me.
But this is a fun thing to talk about it.
I used to collect the Beatles. I was just obsessed with the Beatles when I was younger, and I had a massive collection, but I sold it all. Because you do get to this point where you know you can never complete that collection. So as long as I've got the music, it's of no interest to me. And there's a lot of bands that I absolutely love, but as long as I've got a version or a copy of each recording, I'm happy. I don't care if it's CD or it's vinyl or whatever these days. But XTC, I don't know what it is about them. Maybe it's what I was saying earlier on about having an almost complete collection that keeps me going. I couldn't part with it. I couldn't part with my XTC
You
collection.
can never
Not
get
yet,
a
anyway.
complete collection. It's impossible.
No, well,
Even with XTC, you can get all the music, but you can never get all the items.
no. If you want every foreign edition, if you want all the ephemera and all the little objects like the Japanese, bandanas and stuff, you'll never do it. But if all I wanted 2 7-inches to complete my British collection, I might achieve that one day.
Yeah,
You know,
hopefully.
one day I'll probably end up spending 5, 6, 7,000 pound, but hopefully one day I'll have those 2 7-inch singles, and my collection will be my British collection, if you like, will be complete. But there are still so many interesting foreign editions. Pear's mentioned, copies of Black Sea with slightly different covers, and Japanese pressings with the obies, and there's so much still out there that I want.
Leslie, do you have any trepidation as you begin a collecting career, if you like, that it's all in vain?
No. I mean, I think I agree with what Andy said about, it bringing you joy. And I mean, I guess if you set yourself up to think, I won't be happy unless I have everything, then then you're going to have a lot of unhappiness. But, I'm not obsessive, and I don't see myself getting that way about collecting things. I do periodically look, have like some alerts that come to me from eBay for keywords, and so I do look around, but I'm not going to pursue something unless it's like it just clicks with me, and I think, oh, that's really cool. I would never even eventually have anything close to what these guys have collection wise, and I'm fine with that. That's not what I'm seeking. I just have a few special things that I think are really cool, and I'll buy some more special things as I encounter them.
It's so much easier now with eBay and so on.
Yes, I have it easy.
When I bought Record Collector every month and went through all the small ads to find something, and phoned people in Australia or UK or United States and things like that. It was really fun. It was more fun then, I think, because it was harder work.
Leslie's mention of eBay makes me think, and actually yours of Record Collector as well, makes me think about money, and I'm wondering how much, what's your most extravagant purchase? How much have you spent on these things?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe the gold record for drums and wires that was presented to Colin Moulding. I have that one. It's the real thing. Mm-hmm. I don't remember. Maybe £700, something like that.
Yeah.
I think the most I spent was on a set of 4 acetates for English Settlement.
All right.
And that wasn't madly expensive. It was a long time ago. I can't remember if it was £100 or £150. I don't think I've spent more than that. I've come very close several times. I've got my Science Friction was only 50 quid or something like that. Again, no picture sleeve, but I've got a British 7-inch. It would have, if I'd have spent over £100 or something, it would be for an acetate or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, my Orange and Lemons box.
Oh yeah,
that
sure.
one is quite expensive, maybe $500.
Tell me about that one, Per.
It's a promo box that was made for Orange and Lemons in United States, and I think maybe 50 was made, and I had been looking for it for at least 30 years and bought it 2 or 3 years ago from a fellow collector, John D. Rosenberger, and I think I paid $500 or $600. I don't remember. It's quite nice.
So we're seeing actual oranges and lemons. We're seeing
it's
plastic, right, in straw, and the album's cover on the inside of the box, and the CD itself. But then what's the book that's there?
No, it's a video. You know that
it's the making of Oranges and Lemons. The Road to
Orange and Lemons.
Yeah.
So this is a very rare thing, and I was extremely happy when I found it.
That's wonderful.
It looks gorgeous. And actually, the gorgeousness of XTC material is one reason that it's fun to collect. Particularly, I would suggest maybe less so the albums, but the singles. If you look through the early singles, they're beautiful objects in themselves, aren't they, Darryl?
They really are. I mean, and a lot of that's down to Andy, of course. Being an incredibly talented artist and having a hand in pretty much everything apart from the go-to sleeve and a couple of the early singles. So it's it's very much. I've always thought of XTC products and Andy's solo output as not just the record, not just the music. The cover is intrinsic to what's going on. So when you hear people moaning about, I don't know, artwork or something, you've got the artwork is a real part of that item.
Yeah.
So with the My Failed Songwriting Career EPs coming up, one of the reasons they're coming out as EPs is because of the aesthetic value there, and I think it's really it makes it so much more fun if you're a collector, but it's also I think he's very true to his art. It always has been, and I love that about XTC and about him specifically. It's about how it's not just about the music in a white paper sleeve. There's everything else going on. It's a very immersive, multi-dimensional experience.
And I think it was on a previous podcast that Dave Gregory was saying that when Andy was writing any song that had the potential to be a single, whether or not it was a single, because he thinks so visually, he would have a conception of what the single sleeve would look like should it be a single further down the line. It's an amazing way of thinking, isn't it?
One of the first things that I bought was the Note Thugs single, and because I met a fellow fan who had a copy and had lost it in a flood. It got ruined, and he said, that was one of the things he missed the most. And so I found it and to gift to him. And when it arrived, I took a peek for myself, and I loved it so much that I sent it on to him. But then I started looking for a copy for myself. So that was one of the very first things I bought beyond just the studio albums.
Yeah, and I don't know, Leslie, I don't know if you'd like to describe it, because it's a cutout theatre, isn't it? It's a pop-up theatre.
Yeah, I think most people are pretty familiar with it. It's just that it's a little theater, and it has the sleeve inside that has the little characters. It has the little page where you can actually cut out the little figures and then do like a little scene with them, I guess, and make up your own dialogue. It's just such a fun, really neat package, if you will.
Which makes me think what pick up on what Darryl was just saying. It feels to me that it's part of the actual song that stage set, because it then makes you think about the song. Oh yes, it is written in acts, and there are the different characters, and the characters have their lines and so on, and it completes the picture, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really does, doesn't it? I mean, even the label on the record on both sides of the disc shows a different background. So you can put that in and see it through the window of the house, through the theatre, and you get a different image depending on how you put the record away. There's so much thought.
Yeah, I don't think I've noticed that.
Yeah. So much thought has gone into this. That so much care and attention goes into XTC product.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, being in Sweden, Per, was it harder to get hold of stuff? Or
No, not really. I lived in Stockholm before, and there we had 2 or 3 really good record shops. So there was never a problem. And also reading Record Collector. And actually, I don't know, but I think it was that way I got in contact with Darryl the first time and bought Wrapped in Grey from him.
Might have been. Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me. Well, that's when I was working in a shop, or managing a shop in Cheltenham. Yeah. And Wrapped in Grey was due to come out as it was only promoted by Virgin as a CD and a cassette single, although there were 7 inches pressed, which I believe were only ever issued for radio play, radio stations that hadn't moved over to CD then. So they only actually gave a catalogue number to sell into the record shop like us for the CD single and the cassette. Cassette was never pressed. CD was pressed. and then Virgin reps were bringing them around to offer them to shops, and then told to return them all. They weren't going to issue it, and they were just going to pulp them. So I was lucky enough to get hold of a box of the CD single, and it's in a slimline jewel case. I think you can, if I recall correctly, because it's a long time ago now, you can get 35 or 40 slimline jewel cases into a box, the box that the companies used to use to ship. So I had a box of them. I had 35 or 40 copies at one point, and sold them all for not for a lot of money. I wasn't ripping people off. I was selling them on to fans that couldn't get them anywhere else, and I kept one for myself, two for myself. I forget.
I had two for a while, but I sent one of them to Andy actually.
Well, that's an interesting thing, isn't it, Per? Because the band themselves often don't have a lot of this stuff that you're talking about.
No, I don't think they are that interested in collecting XTC.
Mm-hmm. They've done the songs. They've gone out there. Yeah.
Yeah, they know the whole story. They don't need to collect.
I think Andy gets he becomes more interested when you show him something that he's never seen before, and he wonders, who put it out and who paid for it.
Yeah.
Did Virgin put it out, or did it come out of XTC money and it was never accounted for?
Yeah, I came across a couple of Japanese bootlegs. I haven't physically seen them, but they were being advertised just recently, and they looked like they just sort of got stuff from YouTube and repackaged it, and it's a company. I looked into the company, and the company seems to specialize outrageously in creating bootlegs, and presumably XTC wouldn't have any idea of that, but not least because if they did, they would try and shut the company down.
Well, there's no point because it costs too much money. Trying to chase a small company down like that. Weirdly, I've had this conversation with Andy quite a while back about companies who were kind of making money in that way, and it costs so much for them to send a cease and desist letter every time that half the time it's just not worth it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and those bootlegs are almost always in bad quality, so it's not much to have.
Yeah.
But the craziness of collecting XTC, I can show you. My wife found this and wondered what the hell I was doing. I show you now. One.
It's transistor blast.
Two
transistor blasts.
Three
transistor
They're
blasts.
all still sealed.
4. 5.
It's open.
6. 7. And then I have given one away also. So I had 8 for a while. Now that is totally nuts.
And is there any distinction between any of those? This is the box set of
No, it's the same, all the same.
Yeah,
they are not open. One is open, the rest are still
Yeah.
sealed. But it was like this. It was sold in Sweden from a shop, and they took the wrong price. I think I paid 50 kronas per piece, and that is five pounds.
Oh, fair enough.
So I bought a bunch of them, but it's. If anyone wants one, call me. I can send it. And I think, I have the same with the Apple Venus. I think the LP. I have 6 or 7 of that one.
And they are 6 or 7 identical rather than different labels from different countries and so on. Yeah.
Yes, but then also, of course, I have Skylarking, maybe 15 or 20 different versions, but then they are from different countries and so on.
I have 3 Skylarking.
That is good.
That's more than average. So you've got ones with Dear God and ones with another satellite and whatever.
Yeah. Well, I guess we had 4 because we had our joint copy, I'll say. And then about the 5.1, and then I had to buy the reverse polarity.
Yeah.
I think Andy has a real gift for packaging for fans. I know he puts his fan cap on and thinks, what would I want? And he's really good at delivering on that. and like one of my favorite things that I've bought is the Apple Box CD set. It's so wonderful, and I felt bad because I bought it from a fan who was in need of cash. But I was grateful, and he didn't seem crushed by it. And it was lucky I got one. It still has the feather in, and it's signed by Andy and Colin. So very happy with that. And then to me, like probably my favorite purchase is the collector's album for Fuzzy Warble. So I first bought just the little discs, the 3-set disc that has three discs in each. And then I really saw and coveted this so much. I stocked it on eBay for a while, and so I gifted the original, that little set that I got to share the happiness. But I love this collector's album.
It's such a beautiful object, isn't it?
It's so wonderful.
Andrew Swainson, that do most of Andy's artwork, is a very talented person.
He is,
and
yeah.
that collector's thing is made by Andrew, and in cooperation with Andy, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
I have 2 of it.
I know. One can play and one that's not opened, right?
Yes, it's still in the box. Then I have some things that are really fun. I have a bunch of test pressings.
Darryl.
I love test pressings. I've got a few, but I love test pressings.
This is Ball and Chain, 12 and 7. And I visited Andy, and he gave it to me. And a bunch of others also. Dear God, Big Day, First Sight. It doesn't look like much, but it is.
That's this is typical EMI pressing from 1986. That's what they look like.
Big Express.
Have you got both halves of Big Express?
Yes, side 1 and side 2.
I think I've only got side 2 on a green label promo. I've got one side.
I have
which
both.
One it is. Yeah, of course.
And here is Apple Venus.
Oh.
And Skylarking, 45 RPM.
Yeah.
And also a bunch of singles. Here you can see one with Andy's. This is a cool one. Test pressing of Statue of Liberty. You can recognize his handwriting.
You can recognize Andy's handwriting there, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And the other side, a comment from Andy.
Hang on to the night. Duller with shorter. I can't see what it says after shorter.
With shorter fade.
Duller with shorter fade. So because I was going to ask a question that I thought was naive, but maybe it's not. But when you get a test pressing, you can hear variations from the final release, can you?
There are some that are different. Not many, but there are some that, yeah. There's a test pressing or promo 7-inch of Are You Receiving Me, which is a different mix, which I think is the same mix that's on the Coat of Many Cupboards collection, but that's different. And the acetates that I've got copies of, the test pressings that I've got copies of, are exact copies of the same thing. I remember very, very carefully playing my English supplement acetates just in case there was anything different, but they're absolutely identical. No, they're identical.
These are the same, I think.
Yeah. So when you say that you love test pressings, Darryl, what is it that you're loving? If
it's just there's rarity value, obviously, because there are so few copies. An acetate might only have a half a dozen copies in the world. If people don't know what an acetate is, it's normally a metal disc that's been coated in a very, very thin coating of vinyl, and a first dub of the recording is taken off on that, usually for the band and maybe the producer to take home and listen to, and just to check to see if it sounds okay. It's part of it is coming from a background of somebody who worked in record shops for years, so you would get a lot of these given to you. Record companies and reps were constantly giving you white labels of this, that, and the other. And most of them ended up being junked or given away or sold to the local collector's shop. But every time you turned up a little XTC promo or somebody gave you an XTC promo, that's like taking a little gold nugget home.
Yeah, and Darryl, give us an idea of some of the things that you've got as a result of being in a record shop that I'm not talking about records, I'm talking about the paraphernalia around the records, the posters and the
Sure.
promo items.
Well, as we're getting onto that now, I mean, this thing I really love, I love shop displays and shop display items. And just above my head, you can probably see, if you're in vision, a display stand, a standee, as they're called, for the King for a Day Crown Pack CD single. I've also got similar things for The Disappointed. So that's a stand-up, sits on the counter, which will have maybe half a dozen copies of the single in it, for people to to pick up and purchase if they should want to.
I don't have that one.
You're not getting it. But that also had rather nice window decal. So there's a sticker there, which is, I don't know what size that is, maybe 7x5, something like that.
I have that one.
Which is a transparent sticker. I think, did you get that from me? I don't know. I don't remember. But I had a bunch of those were being given away. Virgin spent a lot of money, a lot of XTC's money, producing some really nice promotional items to try and help sell the band. This is another one, which is the mermaid-shaped counter stand for All You Pretty Girls. Oh. Now her arm lifts out, so you can tuck in a single underneath her. So she's actually got if you put in an All You Pretty Girls single in the front, her hand is going down the sailor's chest.
Oh my gosh.
It's just brilliant. Wonderful. I love it. As I said, they took so much care. When you hear all these stories that Virgin really didn't push XTC, they really did. They tried their best in a lot of ways. And there are some lovely little promo items like that around. And I adore things like that. Especially with paper goods and cardboard goods, because they get so tatty so quickly. If you don't look after them, they fall to bits. So I've got lots of things like press releases and which again are always fascinating. So press kits, sales kits, which would go out to help try and sell a record into a shop. I've got them for things like Apple Venus and for English Settlement and Skylarking and those kind of things. But my favourite items from my own personal collection, again, are paper goods, but they are from right at the very, very beginning of the career. And I'm just going to pull these two out. They're getting very fragile now, so I have to be careful with them. And I bought both of these off a friend of the band many, many years ago, who was a Swindon-based DJ. This is a very early XTC promotional poster, which still has Jonathan Perkins in the band.
Oh, right.
So this is the boiler suit years.
Looking very stark and black and white, isn't it?
Well, it's in the negative, so you can actually. I did photograph that and negative, and it works perfectly fine the other way. But the guy with the cigarette in his mouth is Jonathan Perkins, their keyboard player before Barry. So that's on kind of thickish pink card, and that's got to be from 76 at the absolute latest. Can't be later than that because obviously Barry came along then. And then my prize, and this is really fragile now, and I know Mr. P doesn't have one of these because we've talked about this, and he was quite surprised to find it still existed. It's an original Star Park poster.
Oh.
Star Park, of course, was the band before Helium Kid, so before XTC. And this is a drawing by Andy of I don't know what that'll be, kind of like a cross between Gary Glitter and Crystal Tips, I guess. Kind of a guitarist with a very kind of Oranges and Lemons, Yellow Submarine bendy guitar jumping through a hoop for Star Park gig when you 35 pence to get in and see them.
35p.
How amazing would that be?
Yeah.
35 pence and you got a support act. but this is really fragile now and it's absolutely fallen to bits. But I don't believe another one of those exists in the world. And I certainly know that the guy that designed it doesn't have one. And he ain't getting mine yet.
And as you say, Darryl, it also the way that it is a premonition for Oranges and Lemons is quite incredible because you would not expect that there would be any connection between the 1976 iteration of XTC and the band that they became, but you can show where the roots of the band lie.
But that absolutely shows Andy's obsession with graphic design. So it's even before they talked about is it Heinz Edelman and all those kind of people that were involved in the Yellow Submarine. I can't remember the name of the guy that did the original radio station posters. Sorry. But he's always been fascinated. That's why he went to work as a graphic designer and a poster painter, because he loves great design.
Yeah. Have you got this feels like a sort of like a chess grandmaster match with Darryl and Per moving their queens in each direction.
I'll see your promo poster and raise you.
Exactly, yeah, a poker game or something. So, Per, would you like to match any of Darryl's?
Well, I don't have any of those old posters, but I have a bunch of posters. Not showing off here, but I have them. Like such a very big one. I don't remember how big, but very big. And Skylark and Big Express, some of them. I know this item is Darryl really want that.
He knows I want this.
It's a promo thing for Eurostar, the train. Was given as a free gift in Paris when they open up the tunnel, and it's must have been a fan to XTC and Andy that worked there, because he wanted Andy to do a song. So this is Tin Toy Clockwork Train, and it's a promo, and it's a CD inside. And
but the size of it makes it look like the size of an album, doesn't it?
Yeah. But it's a CD inside, and my guess is that not many have survived, because the people in Paris that got it didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it for sale on eBay once. But this one I got directly from Andy.
And is that an Andy design?
No, I don't. I doubt it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say anything about the design, but I don't think so. But it's a very rare item.
Yeah, very rare. I didn't know it existed.
Inside the cover, you've got a piece of 12 by 12 card with an image of what looks like a 12-inch single. And then the CD, because I only know this because Per showed me his, incidentally. I don't have one. The CD is the label on the record.
Right.
If you see what I mean. It's just such a beautiful package. I love this, and I'm so envious. Look how beautiful that is.
That's so cool.
That's amazing.
Isn't that stunning?
And here's the other side.
I'm so envious.
All the writing there is in French.
Fascinating.
That is super cool.
Other cool items, it's the Hippie Bag.
So it's a Dukes of Stratosphere a handbag bag with the name Dukes of Stratosphere written in pink.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff in it. Got bells and things like that, and some herbs. So it's a little bit psychedelic thing. And see, the bell is here.
Yeah, we can hear it.
And I have two of them. They are all different.
Where did that come from?
Canada. Made it in Canada. Don't know why.
This kind of stuff is particularly rare because even for a keen fan, you wouldn't necessarily know it existed unless you worked in a record shop like Darryl used to, and or you were very tuned into to where that stuff was going. Most people who work in record shops wouldn't be at all interested in it once it's served its function. So to get hold of it while it's there.
I don't know how many was made, but my guess is maybe 50, 70, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But here I have a little bit of a different thing.
Mm.
It was London Underground doing mugs with teams from songs. And this is...
I've never seen this!
This is Towers of London.
Wow.
The story is, I saw it, but the credit on it was Sir John Johns.
How weird.
Oh!
You know,
really?
His name for Dukes of Stratosphere. So I told that to Andy. Andy contacted them, and they made new ones. and they gave one to me. Towers of London, Tower Hill, Circle, and District lines.
Right, that's...
And with the lyrics here.
Now that's something I'm going to go out and find.
Darryl, you're turning green.
I am. I'm going to have to go out and find one of those now.
You didn't know it existed?
No.
No, never seen it before. No.
Yeah.
But that's one of the great things about collecting is people, like Per and other collectors you talk to, they'll turn up stuff that you've never seen before. And there aren't lots, but there are several major XTC collectors around the world who pop up with different bits and pieces you've never seen. There's amazing stuff that came out in Japan to promote Nonsuch, which I don't have. I know Per's got some, but and there's always something to look for. There's always something else. If you want to, as I said earlier on, if you want to just look for the records, or just look for the records from your country, it's fairly easy to have that complete collection. But if you venture out into bits of ephemera and promotional items and stuff like that, you'll never stop. There's always something new to find. It's fascinating.
I've just remembered that I've got this. You've probably got this as well. It's a Nonsuch playing cards.
Oh,
So it's a set of.
I've looked for that.
It's a set of playing cards, and instead of the names of the cards on it, it's you get the ugly underneath and bungalow and omnibus. I suppose you could play snap with it. But again, a sort of beautifully drawn and consistent with the illustrations on the album. I can't remember how would I have come across that, Darryl? Do you remember where that was from?
You may have got it off me. I
don't know.
but that was issued by Virgin and given away to people in record shops.
Yeah.
I had a couple of them in 1992, so I don't know. There were quite a few of them around.
Yeah,
it's not rare.
No, it's not rare, but it's just beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
It's not very rare, but quite rare. I have.
Yeah. It's not major league rare, but it's not easy to find. And there weren't many produced, so there aren't a lot that still exist in great condition because the box is quite flimsy. But yeah, they're nice. That's a lovely thing.
Also, to show you the craziness of collecting,
Oh,
this is a laser disc.
Yeah.
Look.
Yeah.
And since I am nuts, I have two. Do I have a laser disc player? No.
No.
Never played
Yes.
them.
Does it matter? No.
That's my VHS look, but I don't have a VHS player anymore. But I was quite pleased with having that, but I can't match the Laserdisc version. I don't suppose this is. I suppose maybe this is rare. This is the sheet music for Times Square, the movie, which is probably the only place you'll find this score for Take This Town. So I guess that would be an unusual thing to come across, wouldn't it?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is a rare one. Never seen it before.
As well as the 11 different animals, which is hard to get hold of, but does exist out there.
Yeah, I only got mine fairly recently. Maybe the last 2 years, I finally picked up a copy.
Oh, really?
Of different animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a long time to find one.
Yeah.
I gave you the tip, Darryl. Do you remember?
Oh, you did. You did indeed. And I bought it. Reader, I bought it. But that takes me on. Oh, that just reminds me of something else I did have handy, which is that one, which is the sheet music for Senses.
Oh.
And that's rather nice. That's because, XTC sheet music was produced. These were the days when companies did produce sheet music of hit singles. So Senses, being their biggest hit, exists as sheet music from music sales. Music sales are, I've just realised, music sales, of course, are the people that own Omnibus Press who publish my books.
And
I hadn't realised.
The thing about 11 different animals is that Dave Gregory in particular had quite a hand in making sure that the rendition of the music was as accurate as it could be, given the odd way that they juxtapose their different instruments and so on. But I wonder whether something like that, Senses Working Overtime, would have had Dave's contribution or not, or whether it's just somebody estimating what they probably were playing.
Well, I'm just looking at it now, and some of these chords are ridiculously complicated. So it's definitely, it looks kind of correct to me. The second chord in is a oh my goodness, G sharp minor. I can't remember what add for a sharp. I cannot imagine how you play that. Not being much of a guitar player, but it's.
But that sounds like someone's made an effort, doesn't it?
I'm guessing it's reasonably accurate.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I was wondering that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about inevitably is from 30, 40, 50 years ago, but is the new stuff coming out that you still find collectible? And this is a leading question because it was I got hold of the vinyl version. I don't know how collectible this is, but I don't think you can get it anymore. But the vinyl version of the Monkees, well, this is called Christmas Party Plus, but it has
the plus that has Holly on it, right?
It has Holly on it.
Yeah.
It has a demo version of Unwrap You at Christmas with Holly singing Andy's song. To my mind, better than the Monkees sing it, but it suggests anyway that it's still possible to collect stuff and get stuff new that you might not otherwise
of course.
have.
Yeah, I've looked for that version too. I couldn't find one, but I have the regular one.
Yeah, I think it had to move quite quickly when it came out.
Yeah, I picked one up on. It took me a while to get one. I got one online, but it's not just Holly. It's Holly and Andy singing. You can just hear Andy underneath.
Yeah,
which is a very nice thing to have.
I really want to get that. Yeah.
But stuff still happens. Andy's still producing music. He's still making records. So stuff's still coming out. There's less new XTC stuff or products, obviously, but every time there's a reissue, there's a forthcoming reissue of Mummer, for example, which is coming in a brand new series. I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying that. Every time there's a reissue, there are other iterations of that issue. So if you are a big collector, there's stuff to look out for still. There are still items happening.
Do you have your eye open, Per, on the equivalents of Record Collector and eBay? Are you still looking for things?
Yeah, I'm still looking for things, but not in that crazy way. I can forget it for a couple of months and then on it again. And as I said before, I have so much already, so it's really hard to find something that I don't have.
Yeah. Also, just to remember what you do have, I would have thought would be quite difficult if you've got a good memory.
Yeah. Sometimes I get surprised. Oh, do I have that one?
Yeah, I bet you do.
I mean, I have. You see, I have my non-such T-shirt on. I maybe have 40 or 50 T-shirts.
That's something I've never been a band T-shirt person. I've never bought a band T-shirt, I don't think, in my life until like the last few years. And now I think I have 7 XTC T-shirts.
And this cap I'm wearing now, it's quite interesting. It's a promo for Wasp Star.
Oh.
And I showed it to Andy. He had no clue what it was. So I think it's made the record company in the United States.
But that's the thing, isn't it? That those companies, TVT and Cooking Vinyl, and before that Virgin, were issuing stuff that the band was never told about, but they still ended up paying for it. There's money that came out of what should have been their profits was used to produce a lot of this stuff. A lot of these strange promotional items, which Per and I are now kind of grabbing when we see, have kind of stopped that extra $5 going into Andy or Colin's pocket. It's kind of unfair if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
Per, tell me about how you got to know Andy in the first place.
Oh, it's a long story. I did send him some tips about getting rid of his tinnitus, or getting rid of it, help with the tinnitus. And suddenly he mailed me. One day I was sitting down, saw a mail from Andy Partridge, and I went, what? And then maybe a year or so after that, it was a XTC convention in Swindon, and I was going, and he mailed me and also said, do you want to come home and visit me? And I said, maybe.
I'll see if I'm free.
So
let me check my schedule.
So I was there a day with Andrew Swainson and David Lake, and it was a great experience. And I've been to him 5 times, I think, and it's always interesting. He's just talking with him. It's always interesting. He has so much on his mind. And he is a classic English gentleman, I say. And he's very, very kind. The rumors about him being difficult, I have very hard to understand.
I always find that as well, yes.
But I had one thing here that is a little bit odd. Here is a receipt from Kempster's.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So it says Mr. Andy Partridge and you're going to have to read out the rest of it, I think.
It's a receipt for a Squire bass, 140 pounds. And then the rest I can't read. And it's from 2001. This I got from Andy. It's a little bit odd. And I also have all the stationery he had for Idea Records.
All right.
And when they folded that, he gave it to me.
Lovely. And Darryl, what I couldn't quite see what you were just waving up into the camera.
Well, this is I've bumped into Andy on several occasions in the past, and over the last couple of years, 4 or 5 years or so, we've talked a lot more. But this goes back to, I think, the very first time I met him, or maybe the second time I met him. I bumped into him at Swindon train station. He and I were both in Double H Smiths, the stationers, the newsagents in Swindon train station, more than 20 years ago now, maybe 25. And my heart was out to my chest. It was Andy Partridge standing next to me looking at magazines. And I said, I managed to say hello and how are you? And I'm a big fan. And he just turned around to me and said, have you got a piece of paper? I said, I happen to have an envelope in my pocket with something in. I can't remember, probably my train ticket. And I gave him that, and he drew me this little self-portrait. So that's a self-portrait of Andy in a T-shirt, signed underneath, which he drew for me in Swindon train station maybe 25 years ago.
Wow.
Wonderful.
And that was the very, very first thing, the first thing that he ever did for me. And as Per was saying, he's a very, very kind, very generous man.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, when people will post pictures of letters they got back. I think it's great. I know the band answered fan mail themselves, but especially ones that you see from Andy, where he'll draw a picture, or even where people were standing in a long line to get autographs, and he's like embellished the image on the CD or on the vinyl just by adding to it, drawing a body below the heads, or, something that he's embellished like that. It's just, he's always, I think it's just because he thinks the person I'm drawing this for is going to cherish this and think it's really special. And I sent Andy some stuff and made a request of him to send a birthday card to a friend of mine. I included everything that he would need to do, and he did it. He drew this wonderful picture in this birthday card that went to my friend Suzanne, and he sent me this little thank you with it's just a little card that he just wrote, "Thank you so much," and he drew this little self-portrait, and it's not that big a deal. It probably took him 10 or 15 minutes, but I just cherish it. It's just wonderful. It's that little connection.
It's slightly reminding me of this, which is the original 12-inch version of Miniatures, which was the Morgan Fisher compilation where the history of rock and roll comes from, when it first appeared. And so I don't know whether this is rare or not, but I imagine the original vinyl wasn't bought by very many people. But it has a center pullout, which has lots of illustrations to describe each of the many songs on it, because it's miniatures. There are a lot of them. And the one from Andy is he's scrawled in a similar sort of way that he scrawls on his own albums, on the front of a hippopotamus illustration. It's like a cut out and make your own 3D hippopotamus. And he's written on the top, "The History of Rock and Roll by Andy Partridge, the first 40 years," in brackets. So yeah, it's just that sort of found graffiti, I suppose, that he's prepared to put on top of things.
That short little song is brilliant.
Yes, yes.
I got this when I turned 50.
That's gorgeous.
Isn't that amazing?
It says, "Dear Per, have a great big fat swinging Swedish do or 50th birthday. Do whatever you want, then do it some more. Thanks a zillion for your loyalty over the years and for your translation skills. Many happies and prosperous plastic new one."
Wow.
That's fantastic.
This is hard to show, but this is Andy's touring jacket used during English settlement tour.
Fantastic. That's ready for your museum, isn't it?
Yeah, it's it too. One is grey and one black. I have the black one. I tried it on, but I'm still a little bit too big for it.
You can send it to me.
It's quite cool. If you can see it in videos and so from that period.
Although, as I said, Andy did that little self-portrait for me 20 plus years ago, and I bumped into him a couple of times in the interim. It wasn't until about 2005, I think maybe, Per was kind enough to get in touch with me and ask me if I just released a book called The World's Worst Records. And he was kind enough to get in touch and ask me if he could buy a copy for a friend of his. He wouldn't tell me who at first. But then it turned out to be Mr. Partridge. And of course, I signed it for him. And we've become, we correspond regularly ever since. It's a very sweet thing he did for me. So I'm always grateful to Per for any reason. But this is a dog toy in the shape of a police truncheon with a sticker on the front that says XTC The Loving. And this was given away by Virgin Records to certain record shops, chart return shops as we were, to try and promote the Loving single, because on the front cover there's a policeman holding an enormous truncheon. So this was their idea of a suitable promotional item. It's a dog chew. It's a dog toy. You can hear it. You can hear the squeak in it. And unsurprisingly, Andy's had never seen one until I showed him a photograph of this one. And I do know of one other that still exists in the world, but I don't think there are very many of these left at all, because most of them would have ended up being chewed or smashed, or, it's very thin plastic. So they wouldn't have gone very far, or they wouldn't have lasted very long. But it's just a mad but fun and an adorable little collectible, which I just adore.
Mm-hmm.
The fun thing is that there is probably maximum 5 of them left in the world. And you have one of them.
There won't be many. I do only know of 2.
And it still squeaks.
It still squeaks. I was quite surprised. It does still squeak, yes. I love it.
There's this netherworld where the imagination of the band then gets taken up by marketing executives and designers, whoever are responsible for promotional people, for doing all of this kind of stuff. And so, like, some of the stuff that we've been talking about is very much from the imagination of the band, and Andy in particular as the visual genius behind it. But then other stuff is people running it and running with these ideas and having no connection directly with it, to such an extent that Andy hasn't even seen a lot of this stuff.
That's a pretty funny one, though.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I've also got a lot of badges. I know that Per has got quite a lot of these, but what have I got here? Oh, there was an XTC club briefly that produced its own badge. I don't think the XTC club ever managed to do anything more than produce a badge, but it tried. Yes, I'm only going to find out. These are my favourite. This is the T of XTC from the Black Sea.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's in the other 2 will be in there somewhere.
It's a series of 3.
Yeah, that's right. And an XTC sew on patch. Can't remember whether I ever sewed it onto anything.
I've got a Black Sea sew on patch somewhere. That's the only one I have.
I have Black Sea patch, and I had that one, and I have that one. You also have one.
Mm-hmm.
I have so much; it's crazy.
Do you display it, Per? Do you have it locked away, or do you have it as?
Some of it is displayed.
Mm-hmm.
I have on my big speakers. There's a lot of records and stuff like that, and also the same posters that you have is in my room.
Right.
For XTC and those.
Oh yeah.
And I have tried to persuade Andrew and Andy to do something with all of the book sleeves.
That would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Maybe a small brochure or cards or something.
Yeah, postcard, a book of postcards. Yes.
I've seen 30 or 40 of them, and they are all brilliant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I have a number of screenshots of where people have, put on Facebook or on Twitter, put a picture of theirs. But I definitely haven't seen them all. And there's there's definitely a market for that. I know a lot of people expressed, I wish I could get them all. I know it's expensive proposition, but be wonderful. I have that one behind you, Mark, the dig for
XTC.
XTC.
Yeah. And Darryl's just been showing the This Is Pop one, which I've also got in a different room.
But mine, mine's rarer. Because it's not signed.
Of course it is.
but it's worth less. It's not signed. It's not a signed copy. They all the ones that went out were autographed, but this one isn't. So I missed out on the sale of it. I was broke at the time. I couldn't afford to buy as much as I wanted them. I couldn't afford to. And I got in touch with Andrew Swainson. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, and I hope this isn't getting me into trouble. And I asked him if there was any chance that he might have a copy kicking around that he'd let me buy. And he said, well, I haven't, but I have got a test copy of it. So I now have that, which is rather nice, but I don't have it signed yet.
Okay, yeah, keep its rarity value. The unsigned is far more rare.
and the third one is Stupidly Happy.
That's right. Yeah, which I don't have that one. We've probably gone over our length of time, but I think it should be Leslie's job now. If this is either a poker tournament or a Grandmaster chess tournament, who do you think is winning, Leslie? You can be the adjudicator.
No, that's not fair. I mean, it seems obvious that Per has the most volume-wise, for sure. And I'm not saying Per doesn't know the history behind these things, but Darryl has all of the intimate details of why something was and where it came from and who was involved. And so we're all winners. Aren't we all winners?
It's a draw. It's a draw. I think that should be fair, but maybe we'll have to come back for the next contest.
But you've got that deck of cards, Mark. That's a really nice one. Yeah.
It was good to do this because I've been digging out all sorts of things, and I was thinking as well because there are things like that just because of the age we are, we've been able to pick up things such as the circular Big Express, which is an album, a circular album in a circular sleeve that it was not difficult to get hold of at the time it was released. But now I think if you tried to get it, I don't know how long you would take to find something like that. So
I don't think it's that hard.
No, maybe not.
I don't
maybe
think
not.
so.
But again,
not impressed.
A lovely thing to have anyway, in that sense that we were talking about before about the attractiveness of the designs of all of this stuff, that you think, oh, that I wouldn't want to let go of that, whether or not it's of value or rarity, because the value of it is I think for all of these things that we like them in the first place.
Yeah.
As Andy said, it's the joy of it.
Yeah,
that's the most important
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, and that was a lovely quote that you gave us there at the start.
Oh no!
What happened?
Oh, one of the shelves fell down behind me. It's no big deal.
It was an avalanche.
Yes.
An XTC avalanche.
Luckily, they're all empty. Don't worry.
Nature's way of telling us that we've probably come to the end of the podcast.
That was my French. This rolled over promo falling down, but it's
I hope none of your valuable possessions have been destroyed.
No, don't worry. The sleeves were empty. Don't worry.
Phew. On that literal bombshell, as Darryl's flat explodes around him. I'd like to thank very much Leslie, Darryl, and Per for being such good company and for sharing their innermost secrets. And we hope that we've not made you at home too jealous of all of this. And if you'd like to know more, just get in touch. But we'll be back next month with another ridiculous tie knot and another episode of What Do You Call That Noise, the XTC podcast. Thank you for listening.
What do you call that noise?